The 5 most iconic pickup trucks from the 90s, from risky redesigns to vehicles that saved a company. In this video, we're uncovering 5 vehicles that changed the pickup truck world forever. Number 1, the 1994 Dodge Ram. In 1993, Dodge was selling barely 90,000 trucks a year, while Ford and Chevy moved hundreds of thousands. The Ram pickup was dying a slow death with just 7% market share. But within 24 months, this desperate truck maker with nothing to lose made one radical design decision, one that would change the industry forever. The 1994 Dodge Ram would more than quadruple their truck sales to 410,000 units annually, birthing a car that would become an icon in the 90s. So, what was this design decision that many thought was too risky to try? And how did it manage to save Dodge from bankruptcy? Because in 1988, Dodge was in big trouble. Their trucks were old and not selling. The first generation Ram was based on a 1970s design. It looked and felt outdated. And while Ford and Chevy trucks were flying off lots, Dodge was falling behind. Sales dropped year after year. Dodge had less than 5% of the truck market. And a big reason for that is because the Ram itself. It was old, it looked boxy, and the inside felt small. Dodge needed help, and fast. To make matters worse, Chrysler, Dodge's parent company, was still recovering from almost going bankrupt. Another failure could ruin them. So, the truck team had one crucial mission: fix the Ram or shut it down. This birthed one of the most important projects in the company's history, Project T300. Internally, people called it Project Phoenix, like the bird rising from the ashes. They hoped the truck would make an inspirational comeback story. But it wasn't going to be easy, and small changes would certainly not cut it. What was the big problem? Well, Ford and Chevy basically owned the truck world. Their fans were super loyal, and some even had truck logos on their hats. Getting buyers to switch was nearly impossible. If that wasn't bad enough, the early designs for Project Phoenix were boring. They looked too much like every other car. Bob Lutz, a top Chrysler leader, wanted bold ideas instead. Something new, something wild. And that's where one designer stepped in who would change the company's fortunes forever. Philip E. Payne was an interior designer for Chrysler, and his resume was already amazing. He had helped on the original Ford Mustang, but now he had the hardest job in his career. Usually, a new truck takes years to develop, but Payne had half a year to redesign the Ram. The pressure was massive, and playing it safe wouldn't work on this occasion. But it was here where Payne made a bold decision. Instead of looking forward, he would look backward. Rather than copying Ford or Chevy, he studied semi-trucks, big rigs, and highway kings. These trucks looked powerful. They had tall hoods and bold shapes, and that became Dodge's new direction. So Payne and the team got to work. They studied older pickups, like the 50s Studebaker and Dodge Power Wagons from World War II. These trucks looked strong, serious, ready for work. So when Dodge showed the new Ram designs to execs, everyone was shocked. The truck looked big and tough. It didn't look like anything else on the road. This was a pickup that looked like a semi. But this bold decision was met with many critics. Some people inside Chrysler worried it was too different. Would customers hate it? Would it be too hard to build? No one knew. Suddenly, all the optimism was fizzling out. But when all hope was lost, Chrysler realized they had a secret weapon: computers. The second-generation Ram was one of Chrysler's first trucks designed entirely through computer modeling, rather than traditional clay sculpting. The new Ram didn't just look different, it was smarter too. The hood was taller, giving drivers a stronger view of the road. And the horse collar grille bearing Dodge's distinctive crosshair design became an instantly recognizable signature. If that wasn't enough, the fenders stuck out like a semi-truck. This was a truck that broke all the rules when you looked at it. But it was the interior where this Ram changed the industry. You see, on the inside, the truck had almost 25% more space than before. Bench seats could recline, doors were larger, the dashboard even had modern controls. Not only that, but storage was everywhere. Cubbies, bins, and a center console. You could even fit a third person up front. The inside was ready for family, work, or both. But what made it all work? Well, the Ram didn't just promise power. It looked powerful, and that made people feel good when they saw it parked in their driveway. At a time when Ford and Chevy thought their trucks should become more like cars, Dodge thought the opposite. Trucks should look like they could move mountains. And when it was finally time for the new Ram to launch in '94, it wasn't just a hit, it was a game changer. Ford were shaking in their boots, so they responded by redesigning their F-150 in '97. Soon after, GM and Toyota followed as well. What started as a last-chance idea ended up changing truck design forever. The '94 Dodge Ram showed that truck buyers were open to bold new looks. As long as the truck still worked hard, they wanted something that looked strong, felt modern, and made them proud. And that's exactly what Dodge gave them. Number 2, the GMC Syclone.
This is the best pickup truck in the history of the universe.
Faster than a Ferrari.
Every bit as fast as a Lamborghini Diablo.
In 1991, the fastest American thing you could buy wasn't a Corvette. It wasn't a Mustang. It was a blacked-out GMC pickup truck so insane it could outrun Ferraris and Corvettes. Built for speed, not for work, the Syclone was so ahead of its time, it scared its own makers. This is the story of how a rogue pickup became the ultimate 90s street weapon, and why it was too good to last. Picture this. It's 1989 in Detroit, and the automotive landscape is dominated by powerful sports cars and practical trucks. These two categories rarely overlapped. But GMC, perpetually in the shadow of Chevrolet, had an insane idea. They desperately needed something to make people take notice. And when they unveiled their concept at the Detroit Auto Show that year, automotive journalists barely raised an eyebrow. After all, what could be more ridiculous than claiming a pickup truck could outrun European supercars? But behind closed doors at General Motors, an outrageous experiment was underway. A small group of maverick engineers had been experimenting with dropping a turbocharged V6 from the Grand National muscle car into the compact Chevrolet S10 pickup. At the time, the Grand National had already established itself as a giant killer capable of embarrassing Corvettes in straight-line acceleration. So why not take that same formula and apply it to a pickup? But there was just one problem. When the concept was presented to Chevrolet management, they wanted nothing to do with it. The project seemed too outlandish, too divorced from what pickup trucks were supposed to be. Trucks were for work, for hauling lumber and towing trailers, not for racing sports cars. But that's when GMC stepped in, seeing an opportunity where others saw only foolishness. GMC teamed up with Production Automotive Services, and together they set about the complex task of transforming a humble GMC Sonoma into something the automotive world had never seen before. But the engineering challenges were enormous. Pickup trucks simply weren't designed for supercar-level acceleration. And the biggest problem? Getting all that power to the ground. The team started with the drivetrain. Traditional rear-wheel drive would never be able to put down the kind of power they were planning without endless wheel spin. But in a stroke of resourceful engineering, they borrowed the all-wheel drive system from a GMC Safari minivan of all things, and created the first AWD compact pickup truck in history. Under the hood, the transformation was even more dramatic. They started with a 4.3-liter Vortec V6, but that was merely the foundation. The real magic came from the Mitsubishi TD0617C turbocharger and intercooler system, paired with a throttle body borrowed directly from the Corvette. The result was an official rating of 280 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. But building a monster was only half the battle. Getting corporate approval was another story. Within General Motors, the Syclone project faced constant ridicule. Executive meetings turned into contentious debates about the very purpose of a pickup truck. The Syclone's payload capacity would be reduced to just 500 pounds, less than half of a standard Sonoma, and towing was officially not recommended. It seemed GM was creating a truck that couldn't do truck things. Despite the internal resistance, the small team pressed forward, convinced they were creating something special. And when the production Syclone finally hit dealerships in 1991, it didn't just meet expectations, it shattered them. The performance numbers were staggering: 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.6 seconds, a quarter-mile time of 13.4 seconds. These weren't just good numbers for a truck. They made the Syclone the fastest accelerating production vehicle sold in America that year. Faster than the Corvette, faster than the Mustang, faster than anything Detroit was producing. The skeptics were totally silenced. Here was a pickup truck, with a GMC badge no less, that could outrun virtually everything on the road. But that kind of single-minded speed came at a cost. This truck was so specialized for straight-line speed that GMC had to make some unusual compromises. A warning label inside the cab explicitly advised against off-road use. The lowered suspension meant even speed bumps could pose a challenge. Its performance-focused engineering meant traditional truck duties were almost entirely sacrificed on the altar of speed. But rather than hide its impracticality, GMC decided to own it. GMC's marketing department recognized they had something special and leaned into the Syclone's giant killer image. Their ads boldly proclaimed, "Think of it as a Porsche 911 that really hauls," directly positioning this humble pickup against established sports car royalty. The marketing strategy was clear. Forget comparing the Syclone to other trucks. This was a performance vehicle that happened to have a bed. Even if the market wasn't ready, the Syclone had already changed the rules. The Syclone represented a radical departure in pickup truck philosophy, where trucks had always prioritized utility, hauling, towing, durability. The Syclone flipped the script completely, focusing entirely on speed. The GMC engineers had created something truly revolutionary by asking, "What if?" and then following through with unwavering commitment to performance above all else. But here's where things get confusing. After producing just under 3,000 Syclones, almost all in black, GMC discontinued the model after just 1 year. The short production run transformed what could have been merely an interesting footnote in automotive history into a genuine collector's item. Today, well-preserved examples command prices that their original owners could hardly have imagined. The Syclone's influence didn't end with its short production run. Modern high-performance trucks and SUVs like the Ford F-150 Lightning owe their existence to this pioneering machine that proved utility vehicles could deliver sports car thrills. While GMC built fewer than 3,000 Syclones, its impact extended far beyond its sales figures. Automotive historians regularly place the Syclone at the top of greatest performance trucks lists, recognizing how it redefined what a pickup could achieve. The true legacy of the Syclone isn't found in a spec sheet or quarter-mile time, but in how it permanently altered our expectations of what a truck could be. Number 3, the Chevy 454 SS. In 1990, pickup trucks were all about hauling lumber and towing trailers. Not one person was thinking about 0 to 60 times in these workhorses. But Chevrolet decided to shock the automotive world by introducing the first ever muscle truck. The 454 SS, with its sinister black paint, wasn't just another work truck. This was the grandfather of all modern muscle trucks. Today, we're going to explore how this revolutionary vehicle changed truck culture forever. In the 80s, the American automotive landscape was experiencing a subtle but significant shift. While pickup trucks dominated sales charts as utilitarian vehicles, a curious trend was emerging across the country. Pickup owners were no longer content with stock, off-the-lot trucks. Weekend warriors were taking their standard pickups to custom shops, where they'd drop serious cash to lower the suspension, add aggressive styling touches, and most importantly, boost performance with engine upgrades. Enthusiasts were willing to spend thousands modifying their trucks. This was becoming a legitimate automotive subculture. and Chevrolet executives recognized they could capitalize on this trend. Let's offer something no other manufacturer was building: a factory performance truck that delivered right off the showroom floor. But creating such a vehicle wasn't as simple as dropping a big engine into a standard truck and calling it a day. The development team had to make a series of bold choices, starting with the power plant. Their decision to use the 7.4-liter big block V8, an engine typically reserved for heavy-duty trucks, was particularly audacious for a half-ton pickup. But the engineering challenges didn't stop at engine selection. The team had to extensively modify the GMT 400 platform to handle this newfound power while maintaining drivability. So what they did was install heavy-duty Bilstein gas shocks and higher-rate springs to improve suspension control. But the visual identity of the 454 SS needed to telegraph its performance capabilities at a glance. So Chevrolet made a bold decision by offering the truck exclusively in onyx black paint for the debut year. The black-painted bumpers and side mirrors contributed to the truck's stealthy and aggressive stance. When you stepped inside, the muscle car DNA continued with garnet red cloth bucket seats and a center console, features that emphasized this wasn't your typical work truck. However, while creating a muscle car in pickup form sounds impressive in retrospect, the reality facing Chevy's engineers was far more daunting. How the heck were they going to make a 4,500-pound truck with a massive V8 handle well? It required rethinking nearly every component of the truck's mechanical DNA. The heart of this mechanical metamorphosis was the Mark IV V8. Fitted with throttle body fuel injection, it wasn't the horsepower figure that impressed. It was the mountainous 385 pound-feet of torque available at just 1,600 RPM that gave the truck its fierce acceleration. The interior transformation was equally thorough. In an era when most pickup trucks featured vinyl bench seats and rubber floor mats, the 454 SS offered an environment that evoked muscle car aesthetics. The garnet red bucket seats weren't just for show. They provided the lateral support needed during spirited driving. The center console between those buckets was practically revolutionary in a pickup truck, emphasizing this wasn't a vehicle designed for 3 across work crew seating. Today, these muscle trucks are unicorns in the wild. With just 16,953 units produced over 4 years, the 454 SS has become what experts call rarely seen and highly collectible. But perhaps more significant than their scarcity is their legacy. It was the crucial bridge connecting classic muscle cars to today's high-performance pickups. The revolution it started continues 3 decades later. Number 4, the Ford Lightning. What if I told you that Ford, a company famous for building tough, work-ready trucks, decided to create a pickup that could leave sports cars in the dust? Sounds crazy, but that's exactly what they did in 1993. This is the story of the Ford SVT Lightning and how it became one of the most iconic performance pickups of all time. It all starts in the early 90s, where pickup trucks were evolving. No longer just for hauling, they were becoming a symbol of style and power. While Chevy had its 454 SS and GMC was turning heads with the Syclone, Ford was watching nervously from the sidelines. But one day they asked a simple question: could we build a truck that could outrun muscle cars without sacrificing our F-Series toughness? The answer? The 93 SVT Lightning. But this wasn't just another truck project. It was an experiment, a gamble by Ford's special vehicle team known as SVT. Their crazy ideas was to create a full-sized pickup that could out-accelerate sports cars and still haul a trailer. But they weren't just going to take a regular truck and slap in a big engine. No, they were going to change everything about the F-150 to make it handle, corner, and perform like something you'd expect from a sports car. Ford was ready to put their stamp on the world of high-performance trucks. But could they pull it off? All hopes were on Ford's motorsports chief, Michael Cranefus, and his engineer, John Coletti. They could feel the pressure, but they were determined to prove that Ford could dominate the performance truck game. But not everyone at Ford was convinced it could work. Many believed pickups were just work vehicles. They didn't need to be fast, sporty, or even fun to drive. So why risk the company's reputation by creating something so unconventional and risk the possibility of it not selling? But Cranefus and their team were determined. They saw an opportunity to create something extraordinary. They didn't just want to build a pickup. They wanted to build an icon. It wasn't going to be easy, though. With limited resources and an ambitious timeline, the SVT team needed to get creative and push the boundaries of what a truck could do. Their mission? To turn a rugged F-150 into a truck that could burn rubber like a muscle car. They wanted to promise speed, power, and excitement. And thus, the Lightning was born. Now that the team had the vision, it was time to bring the Lightning to life. But creating a performance truck was no easy task. It wasn't going to be as easy as dropping a bigger engine into an F-150 and calling it a day. No, this had to be something more, a truck that could hold its own on the racetrack, in a drag race, and even when taking sharp turns on a winding road. So the team decided to go with the 5.8-liter Windsor V8, better known for its muscle car pedigree. But the SVT team didn't just settle for stock. They took this V8 and added some serious upgrades. The result? A stout 240 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque. Not bad for a pickup truck, right? But the SVT team knew that the truck needed to be more than just straight-line speed. It had to handle well, too. With limited time, they were able to rework the entire suspension to make sure the Lightning could do more than just burn rubber. They lowered the truck for a more aggressive stance and added stiffer springs. And those thick anti-roll bars? They helped tighten up the handling, making the Lightning feel more like a sports sedan than a full-size truck. Cornering was only half the story, though. The engineers also quickened the steering ratio so the Lightning would respond faster and more precisely. They equipped it with large 17-inch alloy wheel, turning into a truck built to grip the road, corner, and accelerate like a true performance vehicle. But we can't forget about the design. It was crucial that the Lightning wasn't just about performance. It had to look the part. From the body color front air dam to the subtle chin spoiler, everything about the Lightning screamed performance. It wasn't over-the-top or flashy. It had a muscular but understated look. Inside, the sport bucket seats with side bolsters kept you in place while driving hard, and the special SVT gauge cluster kept you in the loop on how the truck was performing. The Lightning's exterior was available in just black or red at first, simple, clean, and all about business. Ford's aim was to build a performance truck that could actually handle, corner, and be fun to drive. And in every aspect, the first-gen Lightning delivered. Because the day Ford officially launched the SVT Lightning in 1993, everyone knew it was a game-changer. This was a full-size pickup that could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 7 seconds flat. That was faster than a Mustang GT at the time. A truck? Faster than a sports car? This was something Ford fans and performance enthusiasts had never seen before. And when the critics got their hands on the Lightning, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Enthusiast magazines jumped on the opportunity to put the Lightning head-to-head with Chevy's 454 SS. What did they find? Despite the Chevy's larger engine, the Lightning not only held its own, it outperformed it in nearly every way. The Lightning was faster, lighter, and better balanced. This wasn't just about brute force. The Lightning could handle itself in corners, on the track, and still haul a heavy load when needed. It was the best of both worlds. And it wasn't just about raw power either. The Lightning impressed in daily driving too. Critics noted that it was comfortable enough to drive on long trips, but the second you put your foot down, it would rocket off the line with the ferocity of a true performance machine. The Lightning wasn't just a drag strip champion. It was a truck you could actually live with. Practical, powerful, and surprisingly comfortable. But despite its instant success, Ford didn't go all in with massive production numbers. With only around 11,000 units produced between 1993 and 1995, the Lightning became a rare sight on the streets, making it even more special for those lucky enough to own one. The 1993 SVT Lightning wasn't just a truck, it was a revolution in the pickup truck world. It proved that performance could come in a full-size package, and its impact on the world of performance trucks would be felt for years to come. Number 5. The 97 Ford F-150. In the 90s, the Ford F-150 was the best-selling truck in America for years. But in 1996, Ford's leadership attempted the unthinkable. Replace its best-selling design with something completely new, aimed at a completely new kind of buyer. This is a story of how Ford made one of the biggest gambles in their company's history, and in doing so, changed the truck world forever. It all began in 1989 inside Ford's design studios. and there was one designer ready to push the boundaries. You see, James Boulin received an unusual assignment: assemble a pictorial history of truck design. In doing so, Boulin and his colleague made a startling observation. Pickup trucks had barely changed for an entire generation. Think about that. A truck buyer in the 1990s was essentially driving a truck styled in the 70s or early 80s. And this realization lit a spark. And Boulin discovered something that would shape the F-150's future. He realized that the baby boomers, Americans born in the post-war boom, were now in their prime truck buying years. And it was them who were about to dominate the market for half-ton pickups. However, this was a seismic demographic shift. How do you design a truck for an entire generation? To answer that question, Ford did something unprecedented. It put aside the usual playbook of copying rivals and instead focused obsessively on what its target customers wanted. Some designers thought, why not give the F-150 a muscular, big rig look, which was similar to what rival Dodge did with the 1994 Ram. But Boulin's research suggested that would be a huge mistake for Ford's audience. Boomers weren't asking for a brutish semi-truck for the suburbs. Quite the opposite. They admired the sleeker, more compact designs coming out of Japan. And while they did value strength, they desired refined strength, like an athlete who is fit and trim rather than just bulky. And so, Ford's design team threw out the big rig playbook. They set out to make a truck that looked powerful, but sleek and slim at the same time. This was a 180-degree turn from the past. The new F-150 would be aerodynamic and friendly in appearance. Skeptics inside Ford even nicknamed it the Jelly Bean truck for its smooth, rounded shape. But that nickname would soon go from joke to legend, because Ford's designers translated these ideas into concrete changes. It all starts with a narrower, longer cab. By narrowing the cabin by about 2 inches, this gave the truck a more streamlined profile. And it was this stretch which created what one newspaper called a magical space behind the seats, a handy storage area that hadn't existed before. But that wasn't all. The sleeker aerodynamics was evident in the windshield, which was more steeply angled back. These changes not only made the truck look less brick-like, they improved visibility and aerodynamics. To top it off, it had a softened grille that was a dramatic break from Ford's squared-off past. But Ford ran into a big problem. How do you keep the truck looking tough even with a slimmer body? To tackle this, Ford came up with a smart idea. Why not have larger wheels fitted? This gave the F-150 a confident, commanding stance despite the more car-like curves. But that wasn't the only smart thing they did. Acknowledging that many boomers would use this truck for family and everyday life, Ford added a third door on extended cab versions. This third door, a first for Ford pickups, was located on the passenger side to make it easier for kids or passengers to climb in. Ford was now cementing its role as a family hauler. But we mustn't forget about the interior. You see, Ford made sure the inside was made more car-like and comfortable, with features and styling cues to appeal to someone who might be upgrading from a sedan rather than an old farm truck. In essence, it felt more like a cockpit than a Spartan truck cab. All these features are great and all, but there was still one thing everyone was forgetting. Revolutionizing an icon is never easy. Inside Ford, debates raged. Top executives knew the F-150 was their golden goose, so a failed redesign could be disastrous. Was it wise to alienate the traditional ranchers, contractors, and loyal Ford truckers who loved the old square-jawed pickups? And when it finally arrived, many longtime Ford truck owners hated it, insisting they preferred the tough, squared-off look of the previous generation. This was a classic showdown, new versus old, change versus tradition. You see, the company historically might listen to the existing loyal customers and play it safe. After all, why mess with success? But times were changing, and so was Ford's mindset. Boulin's data strongly suggested that if Ford boldly pursued this new design, they'd have a home run on their hands. The growth potential was huge. Yes, some diehards might grumble, but a much larger audience was ready to embrace something new. So the team pressed on. Don't screw it up was likely the unspoken mandate. This truck had to succeed. The 10th generation F-150 was officially launched for the 1997 model year. Ford had made its big bet. Now, all that remained was to see how the public would respond. Unsurprisingly, it was immediately the talk of the automotive world. Public and media reactions at launch were mixed and passionate. For many truck buyers, seeing the new look for the first time was shocking. Some enthusiasts mockingly called it the Jelly Bean or Bubble Truck. Critics sneered that Ford had gone soft, because Rees were the folks who wanted a trucker's truck, and to them the new design was a step in the wrong direction. But if some traditionalists were frowning, Ford was smiling, because a whole lot of other customers fell in love at first sight. The media praised Ford's courage. It officially brought pickups into the modern era. But it wasn't just about it looking different. It felt different too. It was quieter, more comfortable, and more refined on the road. Many buyers who never before considered a truck found themselves drawn to this stylish vehicle. It was as if Ford had blended the toughness of a pickup with the slick design of a passenger SUV. And that combo opened new possibilities. The sales numbers told the true story of public reaction. Sales remained sky-high at roughly 746,000. To put that in perspective, the F-Series not only kept its crown as the best-selling truck in the country, it was the best-selling vehicle in America, outselling all cars. Any worries that the radical redesign might hurt sales were quickly laid to rest by these figures. Buyers voted with their wallets, and they voted for the Jelly Bean. Ford had successfully broadened the F-50's appeal without losing its core base. The 1997 F-150 looked like the future, but debates raged on in parking lots. For every new F-150 owner beaming with pride, there was an old-school truck guy shaking his head. Ford was keenly aware of this, though. In fact, they had a clever strategy to keep everyone happy. While the F-150 went high style, they soon introduced the F-250 and F-350 Super Duty trucks in '98. They gave what some people were crying out for, brawny, square-jawed design that catered directly to the work truck traditionalists. Ford sent a clear message to the industry. Pickup trucks could no longer be treated as bare-bones workhorses with styling stuck in the past. Ford had broadened the definition of what a pickup could be. It could haul lumber and tow trailers, but it could also comfortably take the family on a road trip, impress the neighbors in the driveway, and even serve as a daily commuter in the city. It was America's do-it-all family vehicle, a role we see overwhelmingly today. Competitors had to respond swiftly. All manufacturers began paying closer attention to aerodynamics, comfort, and style in their trucks. The bar had been raised. Within Ford, the '97 F-150 became a platform for innovation, and that theme of evolution would continue in later decades, as Ford and others would continuously reinvent their pickups to suit new waves of buyers, proving that design is a moving target.